What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel and check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on a topic that a lot of people was talking about as far as like people standing up for Caitlin Clark, right? When Caitlin Clark had these little dust ups with her opponents and stuff like that, people were like, well, from the very beginning, people was like, well, why don't her teammates, stand up and be a little bit more, protective, of Caitlin Clark. I even said the same thing like last year. I was like, well, why don't Aaliyah Boston really, stand up and really, um, help out Caitlin Clark more? When you think about it, like women's sports, not really like men's sports, right? And by that I mean you're not really gonna have like the punches and stuff like that thrown. There was a little scuffle, I think, in the last game that they had. I think what's the young lady name? Sophie Cunningham got into a scuffle with the team that they just beat, but I don't think you're really gonna see a whole lot of that in the WNBA. Because a lot of these young ladies in the WNBA, they want to present themselves, as exactly that. They have images off the court that they want to maintain, and so that may not fit their brand for them to be off the court to be to be an enforcer. That's not really going to fit their brand. I know, like as far as like Aaliyah Boston, I don't, that don't fit her brand. And you can go through and you can name most of the young ladies in the WNBA that don't fit their brand. Well, they're not going to do that. And then on top of that, when you think about like the financial incentive, like I, when let me see, Caitlin Clark got into that little well, she fouled. What was the girl name? Angel Reese, and then Angel Reese jumped up, right? So Aaliyah Boston stepped in between them two, and Aaliyah Boston wound up getting fined just for doing that. Caitlin Clark did pay that fine for her, which I thought was cool. But you got to think about it. Even if Caitlin Clark pays everybody fine who do something like what Aaliyah Boston did, it's still not enough, right? Because Caitlin Clark is making like millions and millions of dollars every year. And then you got a player who's only making like 100 and something $1,000 a year, if that. There's no financial incentive for somebody like that. Like I said, the financial incentive is not there. If you're making $100,000 to defend somebody who's making 28, or now I'm not saying 28, she probably make more than that, but make millions and millions of dollars, like there's not even a financial incentive to do that, right? And so that's not going to work. I remember like when Charles Oakley played for the Chicago Bulls, like he was the enforcer for Michael Jordan. But Charles Oakley was making millions of dollars. And then on top of that, Charles Oakley was not concerned about like his brand, like his off the court brand. Like he was an NBA guy, he was an enforcer, for Michael Jordan. Then you had other guys around the NBA who was enforcers, um, and they didn't, so that didn't really affect their brand, and so it's different. It didn't affect their brand, and they made more money to be enforcers, you know. Even in hockey, you have guys in hockey who are enforcers, and that's their job. Their job is to come in and get into the scuffles and rough people up, But it's not going to work that way in the WNBA. And a big part of that, I think, is their brand. Like most women don't want their brand to be them, looking like a hockey player, getting their teeth knocked out and stuff like that. The women are as just as competitive as men. They want to win just as bad as the men, but I don't. It's not gonna look real. It's not gonna look good. Like if you had a type of situation like where Malice in the Palace, where you had the Pacers and the Pistons going at it and stuff like that didn't look good for men. So just imagine if that type of situation was to break out for women. You could have women, they like the chest bumping and pushing each other and stuff like that. But I don't think it's going to look really all that. It's not going to be that appealing. I don't think it's going to look good, for the women and their brands and stuff like that. So, um, you can't really expect these young ladies in the WNBA to, to really to be as physical as the men when it comes to enforcing stuff like that. I think if the WNBA wants the hard fouls and stuff like that to stop, then they're going to have to to legislate that stuff out as far as like with the calls. They have to call the game and fine people and stuff like that. Put heavy fines on them because other than that, I think the physical play, and I don't even think it's over. I don't think right now it's overboard. There have been a couple plays I thought that was dirty. I thought that and I don't even really want to get into like a few of the plays have been dirty. But you don't have nothing like to the point where it's like where you had with like Kurt Rambis when he played for the Lakers and somebody just clotheslined him and pulled him out of the air. You don't have nothing like that yet. And I don't think you want to get to the point where you having those kind of plays. So maybe the WNBA may legislate some of those things out, some of those fouls out. Like if you foul somebody like above the shoulder, you know, like they do in the NBA, I think, they'll probably fine you. But as far as the physical play, like when I seen what was the young lady named Mabry, Marina Mabry, when she bumped Caitlin Clark and knocked her down, that wasn't too bad. Then, like I said, the Sophie Cunningham got into like a scuffle. Um, that wasn't too bad. I don't think like I said, you're not gonna see the same type of fouls or the same type of plays that you see in the NBA. So, but yeah, the main reason I think though is these young ladies want to protect their brand, which you can't blame them because they want to be able to make money off the court. Um, Now Sophie Cunningham, she did sell like her jersey sales did go up after she said after she defended Caitlin Clark. So I'm thinking that Caitlin Clark fan base wanted to show their support, which is cool, right? But still, I don't know if that's going to be enough for because all that money don't go to to Sophie Cunningham. That money goes to the most of that goes to the WNBA. So it's good for your jersey sales to go up and stuff like that, but they need to be making significantly more money in order for them to want to be able to risk putting a stain on their brand. So, yeah, those are the my reasons for like why these young ladies won't want to stand up and risk their brands. It's more so about self-preservation. So you got the money that's involved, you have their image, they want to protect their image, and no really incentive. I mean, you don't want to see your teammate get roughed up like that. And so, and they're trying to keep her calm as far as like stepping in between her and whoever she's having a dispute with. They're doing those kind of things. But as far as like, being able to foul somebody hard and knock somebody down to the floor and get into a scuffle and get thrown out of games and stuff like that and risk getting suspended, those kind of plays I don't think you're going to see. um you know I don't think they're going to go get really all into that as far as like in the women in the WNBA. I don't really see it. I would be surprised. Like I said, it's really not enough money for them to do stuff like that. And so, that's my take on it. Let me know if you agree or not. If you think that now, Sophie Cunningham, like I said, Sophie Cunningham did say, she's gonna stand up for Caitlin Clark. So maybe Caitlin Clark is gonna, she hired her own muscle, and so and, that remains to be seen. But I don't think like across the league you'll see a whole lot of women doing that. But that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I will check you all out in the next video. Peace.